Hello and welcome back to the Second Chance to Live channel here on YouTube. I'm happy to see that you decided to stop by to watch this video presentation. Thank you. In today's article, I'm going to be introducing the first article in a series of articles that I wrote on the topic of brain injury awareness, which I feel needs to be addressed in another way than it has been being presented. To read the article, I'll put my glasses back on and bring up the article. I want to thank you for your time. You're an important part of my process, and I always enjoy our times together. Here's the article. Enough with brain injury awareness. For many years, I have heard this touted as a battle cry by the ranks of people who have experienced brain injuries. We need more brain injury awareness. Awareness is great, but unless the awareness leads the individual to a place of acceptance, action will be a far cry from awareness. Awareness merely acknowledges that something has occurred, but if nothing changes, it will remain the same. Acceptance gives the individual the ability to realize that things are not going to change or get better unless other steps are taken, thus launching action. Action brings about hope as solutions are considered instead of focusing on the awareness of what cannot be changed. Sure, our lives have forever changed because of a traumatic or acquired brain injury or some other type of brain injury that occurred in our lives. But that does not have to limit our lives or who we become in this life. By accepting what cannot be changed, we are given the gift to get on with our lives, find ways to use what we have in ways that work for us, to create a good life for ourselves. Several days ago, I wrote and published an article, My Experience Living with a Traumatic Brain Injury, in which I shared some of what I've learned through my journey of living with the impact of a traumatic brain injury and an invisible disability for the last 48 and a half years. In today's article, I would like to share what I have learned about an arch nemesis that kept me stuck for many years. In my experience, I had to get to a place where one degree of pain had to be superseded by another pain for me to get on with my life. I had to address this pain to be able to stop focusing on what I could not change, to be able to change the things that I could, to be able to get on with my life. The pain involved no longer continuing to deny the impact of my traumatic brain injury and what it had upon my life and was continuing to have on my life and well-being. In my pain, I realized that I could no longer buy into what other people sought to deny or maintain about how my life was impacted for whatever reason they needed to deny the reality that I was faced with. Denial was a huge barrier that I needed to overcome in order to move from a place of awareness to a place of acceptance so that I could get into action, to be able to create a life for myself, a good life for myself. Below is the synopsis of what I learned through my process that has helped me to recognize, confront, and overcome both my denial and other people's denial. Denial is a defense mechanism that protects the individual from having to face or confront the shock of a loss. Denial shields the individual from having to face the pain related to the loss. Denial can act like a warm blanket. Denial can also be used as a door to shut out that which is just too painful to address. Denial can also be used to avoid and ignore what we do not want to confront. Denial can be used to erect a dam to hold back unwanted memories and emotional pain. Denial can be used to suppress body memories. Denial can be used as a disconnect so that our hearts won't let our head know what is or what has happened. Denial can also be used to defend, answer, and explain away behaviors that undermine and invalidate our lives and our well-being. Denial can be used to dismiss or invalidate another person's pain or reality in order to avoid having to interpret or address our own uncomfortable feelings and make changes. Denial can be used to justify the way in which we treat other people, the way they treat us, and the way we treat ourselves. Before I began my grief work to be able to move from awareness to acceptance, I saw denial as an ally. When anguish motivated me to begin my grieving process, I began to see denial as an active adversary. As my eyes slowly opened, I saw that denial was seeking to keep me trapped in a system that would or could not allow me to realize or accept my reality. In collusion with my fear or fears, denial shamed me for not being enough, even though I sought to do my very best. Denial also sought to keep me distracted so that I could not see a way to find my destiny. Denial led me to believe that I was my disability deficits and limitations. Denial sought to silence my voice and keep me shrouded by a diagnosis, a label, a stereotype, and a societal stigmatization that in effect sought to devalue my worth and value because I survived a traumatic brain injury. Denial sought to keep me subservient to what professionals in the field of brain injury and the brain injury industry and other people thought of me. Denial sought to undermine my self-esteem and keep me crouched in the shadows of isolation. Denial led me to believe that what I thought and felt about myself was of no accord. Denial sought to keep me distracted so that I could not see the truth. Denial sought to disparage my value and worth because I did not live up to denial's expectations. As my awareness grew and I saw how my denial was limiting my life, so did my motivation to confront my denial. As I began to confront my denial, I became aware of how my life had been affected by a lie. As I examined the strategies that denial used to avoid the truth, I started having spiritual awakenings. One of the spiritual awakenings revealed that denial had been acting as a door, and that denial denied access to any and all unwanted thoughts or feelings. In effect, whenever any unwanted thoughts or feelings sought to be heard or experienced, denial would discount and minimize the relevance of those thoughts and feelings. Denial imposed the code of avoidance to mask what needed to be addressed. Denial through shame led me to believe that I was a failure because I could not overcome what I was powerless to change. Denial blinded me to the possibilities of what I had not tried. Lessons from confronting denial. Through the process of confronting my denial, I have learned some valuable lessons that may also be a benefit to you. As I confronted my denial, I realized that I needed to keep the focus on myself. To own my reality, I needed to be able to I needed to be accountable to and for how I was choosing to respond to the loss or losses that I discovered were as a result of the injury to my brain. I discovered that I needed to own my own sadness because of my loss or losses, regardless of whether anyone else could accept or understand how those losses affected and affect me. I needed to own my own sadness because of my loss and losses instead of detaching from my reality. I needed to feel my feelings. I needed to sit with my discomfort. I needed to determine why I was reacting to people, places, and situations. In my awareness and acceptance, I discovered that I needed to determine why I thought I needed to stay in and maintain both my denial and the denial of other people that other people had surrounding the impact of my traumatic brain injury. How denial affected relationships. To understand how denial was being played out in my relationships, I needed to take a closer look. In a denial system that seeks to maintain that reality does not exist, feelings are considered a threat, especially when those feelings trigger a sense of shame. Shame is different from guilt in that shame is a being wound. Debilitating guilt and debilitating shame are very similar in that the individual is led to believe that don't make they don't they don't just make mistakes, but that they believe they are a mistake. As a traumatic brain injury survivor with an invisible disability, I was led to believe that because I did not live up to expectations, I was a mistake. For many years, I internalized my inability to live up to expectations despite my hard work and efforts to overachieve. Because I was led to believe that I did not just make mistakes, but that I was a mistake, I remained in denial. For many years, I sought to justify my worth and value through people pleasing, approval seeking, and mind reading. I attempted to do more to be enough. When these strategies failed, I sought to discard parts of myself that I found to be displeasing to family, friends, and teachers, schoolmates, employers, and co-workers in an attempt to prove that I was not a mistake. Slowly but progressively, denial stole bits and pieces of my reality. In the process of discarding parts of my reality, I discarded parts of myself. In the process of discarding parts of myself that were not pleasing to other people, I traded my judgment for other people's reality and their judgment. In my experience, when I began to confront denial for what denial was in my life, I experienced various reactions. Among these reactions was anger. Because I believed that I deserved to be shamed for not being enough, I internalized my anger. I was angry at myself, angry at other people, and angry at my reality. My anger many times came out sideways because I did not know how to express my anger in healthy ways. I was angry at my deficits and limitations. I was angry at life in general because I felt helpless in many ways. In the process of confronting both my and other people's denial per my reality, I discovered that I had held resentments toward various people, places, churches, educational institutions, and employers. I also held resentments towards myself. In the process, or in my process, excuse me, I discovered that I had held onto my anger and resentments. Excuse me. In my process, I discovered that as I held on to my anger and my resentments, I pushed people away from me. I found that in the process of alienating other people, I was in effect alienating myself. Consequently, I became my own enemy. When I realized that I needed to address my denial, anger, negativity, criticism, and judgmental attitudes, I began a program of rigorous honesty. Through being honest with myself, my sense of helplessness was replaced with hope. Resentments are like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. Through my recovery process, I discovered that I needed to examine the resentments that I held on toward other people and toward myself. In my process, I found that by examining my resentments, I was able to begin looking at the patterns that I had maintained in my relationships with other people and with myself. Through my process, I discovered that the resentments that I held toward other people and myself actually sustained my denial, anger, negativity, criticism, and judgmental attitudes. Through my process, I discovered that my resentments held the key that kept me locked in a room of isolation and self-reproach. To break free, I needed to get busy. In my experience, I found that I needed to determine who I held resentments toward, and why I sought to maintain those resentments toward those individuals, family members, places, churches, significant relationships, and institutions, as well as employers, so that I could come out of my isolation and be free of my self-reproach. Holding on to anger is like picking up a hot coal to throw at someone. However, we are the only ones to get burned. In my experience, I needed to examine specific periods of time in my life in order to be able to identify my resentments. Specifically, I needed to examine how I related to family, friends, educational venues, churches, employers, and other significant relationships. Because I wanted to be free of the negative energy that my resentments created, I did an inventory of my resentments during specific times in my life. I examined as far back as I could remember until I was 6 years of age. Then from ages 6 to 12, 12 to 18, 18 to 24, 24 to 30, and 30 to 36, and then 36 to 42, and so on. Through my proactive participation in the above exercises, I was able to identify specific patterns of behavior that I used to relate both to other people and to myself through those time periods. As I identified patterns in my behavior, I was able to address what was my part, what was not my part, and how I could be freed from the negative consequences of my resentments. As a byproduct, I was able to begin to recognize where other people ended and where I began. Consequently, I was able to begin to establish healthier relationships with both other people and with myself. Healthier relationships with the people who chose to remain in denial while realizing that I no longer needed to remain in denial. For more information concerning this recovery process, you may visit these links, and I've included links to my article series of Second Chance to Live Action Steps, and then Second Chance to Live Action Steps Revisited. I also have links to my 2 video presentations of Second Chance to Live Action Steps Revisited, an overview, part 1, and then Second Chance to Live Action Steps, a synopsis, part 2. So, please let me know how I can be of service to you, your group, organization, association, or in another capacity. You have my permission to share my articles and or video presentations with anyone who could benefit. However, please attribute me as being the author of the articles and video presentations and provide a link back to Second Chance to Live. As you read my articles, watch these video presentations, and questions come to mind, please send those questions to me. All questions are good questions. This is the end of this video presentation. Before I go, let me encourage you with this. Please do not give up on yourself, a loving God, or your process, because more will be revealed to us in time. The pieces of the puzzle will come together in the correct order and at the right time. I'll say so long for now. Have a great day, and God bless both you and your family. So long now.